What's up everyone and welcome to the club. Mother's Day is just around the corner, so today I'm going to be showing you how to draw a lion and her cub. For today's lesson, we'll need our sketch pad and a pencil. Now I'm going to be drawing with my Faber-Castell HB pencil to start with the rough sketch, and then later on I'll switch to my 2B pencil to add some contrast and shadows. Let's start with a line coming down the center of our page, starting from the very top. I'm just going to lightly work our way down. Starting from the top, coming all the way down towards the bottom. Now pulling the pencil down towards us is a lot easier than pushing away. We're just letting gravity do all the work. Now let's go up to the top. We're going to draw another line going across from left to right. And these lines are going to help us align our drawing. Now that we have our lines in place, let's use this to create a large circle along the top of our page for the lion's head. So from that center point, I'm just going to move up to right about here. Let's mark that off. Now I want to measure this distance from that center point down towards the bottom. So right here, let's mark that off. And I'll do the same thing across this horizontal line. So again, measuring the distance from the center over towards the left, and then over towards the right. Now I want to connect the center point of each mark with a curve to create the circle. So I'm going to start with the top left. Because I'm right-handed, I want to be able to see where I'm going. We're just lightly sketching this in. And the circle doesn't have to be perfect. We're just using this as a rough guide. And we're going to come back later and erase this out once we get our contours in. So just go back and just smooth this out as best you can. Now, we want to add another set of guidelines coming down the side of our circle. So let's start back on the left. Pull this all the way down towards the bottom. Now, I'm just going to stretch that up towards the top. You want to make sure that this line is parallel to that center line. Let's do the same thing on the right. Going up towards the top and then down. Again, making sure that this is parallel. Now with our circling guidelines in place, we're going to start blocking out the pose and the composition of the lion and her cub. So let's start with the lion in the background. We're going to draw this from the side view, so we're going to slope the head down. So let's start from the top left side of our circle. It's going to draw a straight angle line. Coming down, it's going to pull this down to right about there. Now from here, we're going to flatten off the face. We're going to bring this down with an angled line. Let's bring this in towards this line here. So meet up here. Now from the chin, we're going to draw a straight angled line going over towards the right side of our circle. So we're going to draw a straight angled line going out. Just like that. Now let's draw the back of the head. Starting from the top right side of our circle, draw a straight angled line coming down and then out. Let's go to the bottom left side of our circle and draw the front of the neck. Just going to angle this down and in. Now this is probably going to get blocked by the cub. We're just going to draw this anyways. Let's go back to the right side of our circle. We're going to draw a straight angled line coming down the shoulders. And we're just going to pull that in towards the bottom center of that line. Right there. And then right here, the shoulder is going to come down across that front arm. So let's slope this down and out. Now that we have the main shape of the body, let's tuck the cub in between the arm and the head. So we're going to use this center line as the center of the cub's head. And we're going to start right here. Let's draw a straight line going across from left to right. And this will be the center point of the head. Now from here, we want to draw a circle going around. So let's move up to the top of the head, right about here. Mark that off. Now we're going to do the same thing we did with the larger circle. Measure that same distance down towards the bottom. And then along the side. From the left and then the right. Now let's connect each of those points with a curve to create the circle for the cub's head. And again, the circle doesn't have to be perfect. And it's okay if the circle overlaps this line. So we can just tuck it in behind the shoulder. Just like that. Let's go over towards the left side of our circle. We're just going to slope the neck coming down in behind the arm. Now from here, we want to take a quick step back and just look at the overall composition and proportions. Now if everything feels okay, we're going to add a second level of detail. Let's start again with the mother's head. Start from the top to the right side. We're going to draw a straight angle line. Coming down and out. And then the ear is going to sit along this line as the base. So let's start from the top. We're going to draw an oval going up, come around, and then back in. About halfway along this line. So this is the ear along the front. And then in the back, it's going to get tucked in behind. So we're going to start up here, go up, and just tuck that in. Now the eye is going to sit along this quarter of our circle. So let's start right here. We're just going to flatten this off. Straight line right here. From the top, we want to slope the eyelid, coming down slightly towards the back of the eye. then angle this down, and then across. We're just going to extend this all the way out, just like that. Let's add a triangle for the nose. So from this point, come straight in, then angle this down. Now the mouth is going to sit along this line, so we're just going to pull this across. Now let's focus in on the cub's head. We're going to start by adding a gap in between the eyes. So from that center line, let's move over toward the left, right about here. Draw a straight line going up and then down. Take that same distance over towards the right and do the same thing. Now along the top, we're going to draw 2 circles for the eyes. One on the left and one on the right. Now from the inside corner, angle this down and out. And you want to pull this down and then in towards the center of the head. Now let's connect the ends with a curve, just going across the nose. Now I want to simplify the muzzle and the mouth. So let's start from the left side of the nose, curve this around towards the bottom of our circle. I'm just going to bend that up towards the middle and do the same thing on the right. So we have 2 circles merging in towards the center, and then extend the chin down underneath, just like that. Let's go up to the top of the eye line. We're just going to angle this down across the edge of our circle. This will be the base of the ears. Now the cub has some large ears, so let's start from the top. Almost like a half oval going out, and we'll pull that back in. Do the same thing on the right. Just like that. Now I'm going to have the body coming out and then down. So let's start here, curve this down and out, and then bend that down in behind that front arm. Now I'm going to add some thickness to that front arm. So we're going to step over from the chin, angle this down. And again, we're going to take a quick step back, take a look at our overall proportions. Now if everything looks okay, we're going to go in and erase all of our guidelines. And while we're doing that, I want to mention that if you want to keep learning with me, I have a free 7-day trial inside the Sketch Club on School. You'll get full access to all my courses, workshops, and one-on-one coaching, plus a brand new lesson is going to be dropping there later on today. You definitely don't want to miss that. I'll leave the link for you in the description below. Okay, so now that we cleaned up our drawing, I'm going to go in and just use this rough sketch as a guide to help us layer on some more details and refine the shapes. Now I want to start with the lion's eye. So we're just going to work our way around, starting with the top of the eyelid, coming down. Let's round up the eyeball. We're going to step in from the left, curve this in, and just going to lightly add a small circle in the center for the pupil, and then lightly shade that in. Let's add a little bit more shape to the lower eyelid. We're going to start up here, curve this across, and then bend that down. Now from the outside, we're going to bend this in. Now there's a thick trim that goes along the inside of the tear duct, and then down. And I'm just going to lightly shade in that area on the left. Then just fade that out to the side, just like that. Now from here, it's going to work our way around the profile edge of the head. So let's add that thick brow. On the side of the eye, we're just going to pull this up. And we're working within that bounding area. We don't want to go too far away because we already established the proportions. So you're going to stay close to that line, but also adding some more shape. Let's go up to the top of the head. Now right here, we're going to add a curve going across the bridge of the nose, coming down. So we have this bump across the top. Let's fold the back brow in behind. So we're going to step down. We'll see the inside edge going up. Just to give this a little bit of depth to our drawing. Now here, curve this out and then down towards the tip of the nose. Round up the nose and then bring this in. Now I want to add that little point across the bottom, and we're just going to add some more shape across the top. Curve this up. Now right here, we're going to add that nostril going up and then in. Let's shade the inside of the nostril and down. Now here we're going to work our way in towards the mouth. So that center seam is going to come down. Let's bend this across and then down in behind the cub's head, and then the chin. Now the chin, we're going to bring this down. We're going to modify the shape a little bit and just lightly sketching this out because we're going to layer some fur on top after. Just pull that up underneath. Let's see the back side of that muzzle on the left side, and we'll bend that in. Now let's go up to the top of the ear. It's going to add some more shape to the outside. So again, working within that bounding area, we're going to add a fold, go up toward the top of the ear. And We want to try to make this look a little bit more natural than that smooth curve that we have on the outside. So adding a few little bumps, a little nick right here, coming in. Now let's add a fold. So I'm going to start across the bottom. Just curve this across. I'm just going to add some folds going around the ear, just like this. I'm just going to lightly shade in the inside of the ear. Let's add some more shape to that back ear. And the top of the head, so round that out, and then come down the back. Just curve the back of the neck coming down. Now let's go back to the base of the ear. We're going to also add a little fold coming around the jaw, then down. Let's add a fold across the shoulder, going up towards the neck. Just going to bring this in. Again, just adding a little bit more shape. So we're going to bend this across. And a fold right here. I'm just going to blend into the forearm, going across and then down. Now let's go into the cub's head. We're going to add some shape to the eyes. So just going to angle this in along the inside, coming down towards the tear duct, and then bend this out toward the side. Just going to curve the eyelid, coming down, and then round out the bottom of the eye, coming in. Now I want to add a little highlight along the top of the eyes. We're going to add a small little rectangle along the top. Let's darken up the top, going around the highlight, and then just blend that down. So we get a little bit of reflection coming up towards the eyes. Let's go back to the nose. Now right here, I'm just going to add a little bit more shape, starting with the center. Pull that up along the side. Now as you come in, just going to pull that down towards a point. And we can also shade the inside of the nose. Like that. Now from the center of the nose, let's draw that straight line to separate the muzzle. And then we're going to add a little bit more shape to the muzzle area. Coming down, pull this up along the side, and then in towards the nose. And then a little bit more shape to the chin. Let's add a little bit more shape to the jawline. So along the side, I'm just going to bend this out, and then bend that in towards the bottom of the muzzle. And I'm just going to add a light curve going across the base of the ears. Now right here, along the top of the head, we're just push this up underneath the mother's cheek. So we're just going to fold the cheek, just going across with a curve, and it'll just tuck the head in underneath, just like that. So it looks like it's pushing up. And add a little more shape to the ears. We're just going to tuck this ear in behind the arm, just like that. Now let's add that little indent, lightly going around the outside. Now we can lightly shade the inside of the ear, starting off dark along the side of the head, and then blending that up. Now let's add some shape to the outer part of the arm, starting underneath the head. Just going to curve this out, round up the arm, and pull that in. So we've got this nice curve going out towards the elbow. Now right here, we're going to add a fold going across the center of the arm, and then bend the arm up in towards the body. Now here I'm going to go back in and just clean up our drawing one final time before we add some more details and shadows. Okay, so now at this stage, I'm going to switch over to my 2B pencil just to get a little more contrast and darkness in my drawing. I'm just going to add some contrast to our contours and also add some tones as we go. So let's start back at the eye. And at any stage here, you can modify the shapes if you need to, but we want to establish this as early as we can in the process. So starting with the eye, let's add that fold. Now I'm just going to darken up that contrast on the inside, starting from the top, going around the eyeball. Now right here, as we come out, we're just going to fade that out. Just lighten that up. Now right here, we're going to add a highlight along the top right side. So a little rectangle in the top corner, just very lightly. Now I just want to add a blurry pupil. So I'm just going to lightly shade that in. Let's darken up the top of the iris and just fade that down. And we want to go around that highlight so it stands out. Now let's work our way around the brow. Now here, I want to start adding some fur texture. So I'm just going to brush this up and then out. So going out across the top of the head and the brow, and then fade that out. Now right here, we can add a little fold along the top of the eye, and then just work our way around the perimeter of the head. So adding some darker lines. Now this fur along the edge of the head is very short, so we don't need to add too much texture here. Let's work our way across the back brow. Now as you go up to the top of the head, the fur is going to get a little bit longer. So just brushing this out towards the ears, just like that. Let's go to the nose. Just adding some more contrast. And we're just going to darken up the nostril, going very dark. And the outside of the nose. Now with the nose, we want to darken up the bottom and just fade that up towards the top. So the nose catches a bit of light as you go up. And we don't want to go as dark as the nostril. Want to make sure that it's a tone lighter. Just going up like that. And you can go back and just smooth out your shading as much as you like. Just making sure that it's dark enough. And from here, I'm just going to lightly work our way across the edge of the muzzle on the bottom. And just adding some shape to the mouth. Darken that up. Add a little bit of a bend. Now here, along the chin, we want to add some fur coming down. So let's start from the mouth. Just going to brush the fur coming out. These lines, leaving a little bit of a gap in between. And the fur gets a little bit longer along the chin. Just like this. So we're working with that line that we created, that guideline. And just pull that up towards the cub. Let's draw the back of the muzzle. Going in, behind. Now I want to add a thick line across the mouth. Darken that up. Now we're just going to fade that down. So this thicker, darker line going across the edge of the mouth. Just like this. You can also use the side edger pencil to just pull some of that shading and that texture coming down across the chin. To have this nice soft effect. And then from the bottom of the chin, you can also soften up the fur by bringing this up. You can also darken up the inside on the right, just because this will be pushed into shadow, like that. And also just blending this up on the back side. Now we're going to add some fur across the ears. So again, working around the shape, and add that fold, add some thicker fur along the inside. So just flicking our pencil up, and then as you go up, the fur gets a little bit shorter, so we just create a contour going all the way around, just tracing out the ear. And then right here, it's going to blend this into fur, coming down the side, and we'll blend that out. Let's add that long fur along the inside of the ears. And that fold. And we'll darken up the inside of the ear, and then fade that out. I'm just going to work our way across the back of the neck, and then just fade that out towards the edge of our page. Let's work our way across this fold. So right here, it's going to add a little fold. And we want to cross in towards the cub's ear. Add a little fold here, just fade that out. And fold the rest of the neck in behind. And then continue down the arm towards the elbow. And again, just fading that out. Now I'm going to switch gears and go in towards the cub's head. So starting again with the eyes, and add that fold along the inside. And again, just working with our rough sketch that we created, but adding some more contrast, and again, modifying the shapes if we need to. So working our way around the eyes. Now let's enhance that highlight by darkening up the top of the eye, and then we're just going to fade that down. Go around that highlight and fade that shading coming down. And just working our way around the nose. And we'll darken up the inside. Now here, along the base of the muzzle, we're just going to add some fur. We're just going to brush this out towards the sides. So this dark trim along the mouth. Add that fur across the bottom. And then we're just going to blend this up along the sides. Just like that. Let's enhance that fold from the side of the nose. And then soften up that fur across the chin. So again, just working across that curve, just pulling these lines coming down. Now I'm going to add some fur across the cub's cheeks and then bending that in. Just add a little fold across the neck. Like this. Now I'm just going to add some rough detail across the body. So let's add that fur. Just brushing across the side of the arm. So we're coming down and then out towards the elbow, and then bend this in behind the lion's arm. Just add that fold really roughly, going across, and I'll just finish off the inside. Now let's go back up to the top and work our way around the ears. So I'm just going to soften up that fur. Now right here, we're going to add that fold from the mother's cheek, going across the top of the head, and tuck the head in underneath. And we're going to come back and enhance that with some shadow, so it looks like it's being pushed in. Let's tuck this ear behind. Now along the base of the ears, we're going to add some thick fur, brushing this down and out. Trace the inside. Now we can use the side edge of our pencil to darken up the base of the ears and then fade that out toward the side. Let's just do a quick cleanup. Now the next thing we're going to do is switch to the side edge of our 2B pencil and start adding some various tones. So let's start with the front edge of the mother's head. So I'm going to leave a small gap to create a little bit of a highlight. So just lightly tracing the profile edge of the head along the left, going up towards the eye. And it's going to lightly add a tone, coming in and then fading that out. And we're just going to get rid of all those little gaps in between our lines. Let's go across the top of the eye. And again, just leaving a little bit of a highlight edge along the top of the brow. And we're also going to darken up the back ear, going a little bit darker than the one in the front. Let's bring that shadow. Now right here, there's a little trim around that tone. Come down the base of the ear, go around the cheek, and then back up towards the eye. Come down in behind from the muzzle, in behind the cub's head. So you get a little bit of contrast from the front of the ear to the mother's head. And then from here, we're going to add a shadow, going across and then out. Now with the back of the neck, we're going to darken up in behind the ear. Now the light's going to come in an angle, so the highlights sit along the top edge with the shadows across the bottom. So this ear is going to cast a shadow across the back of the head. And we're also blending in the tones. So let's go down the side of the body and then fade that down. Now we're just going to darken up that front edge of the arm and then bend that down. So we're just filling in this area with a base layer of tones and shadows. Let's darken up the form, again leaving a little bit of a highlight. And we just want to blend that out. Just soften up the edge so it's not a hard line across the shadows. Just want to soften that up as much as we can. So there's an even blend going out. Now with the cub's body, there's a shadow inside this pocket. Just darken up the body and then fade that up toward the head. Now the head's going to cast a shadow across the body. So we're going to darken that up. Now this area right here, there's a lot less light hitting that area, so we're just going to darken that up. Blend that down. And we're just going to blend that down the body. Let's add a little bit of tone inside the arm. And then also the body. Right here, darken that up and then fade that out. So again, we get that nice contrast with this area, with that tone. the front of the arm. Now we're going to go in, just going to add some tones and patches inside the cub's head. So down the center, add a little stripe, and then blend into the nose. Just add a little bit of tone, just leaving a gap on the sides, coming down towards the eyes. And it doesn't have to be symmetrical. It actually looks more natural if we offset this. And right here, this is going to go into shadow. This little pocket here is going to be very dark. Very little light here. Darken out that seam and that fold. Just like that. And now here, I want to add that fold. Darken that up. Add a shadow on top of the cub's head. Now I'm going to switch my pencil to my HB pencil to the side edge. We're going to add a core shadow. So we're just going to darken up that tone. Again, leaving a little bit of a highlight on the outside and then blending that in. So we're just starting with the outside. Just like this. Now we're just going to add a little bit more detail with these shadows around the eye and then along the top. So just brushing that tone going up and then out. So we can go right up to the edge of the eye. Going out. Let's add a dark trim underneath the eye. So a little gap, and then come down. And we're just going to blend this down towards the face, just like this. Now we want to carry this line around and then out. Now right here, we're going to add those little stripes and spots. So we're going to start with the base layer of the stripe that goes across, and we're giving it a slight bend, going towards the outside, on the top. Now let's darken up the spots. Just adding these individual spots across that line. Let's add a few smaller ones here, and a few across the top. I'm also going to darken up this area. Just really push that into shadow. And also we can enhance the darkness of our tones. Go down from the mouth. Let's go up to the top of the head. Darken up the shadow. Now this shadow is also going to add some enhancements to our fur textures. As long as we're brushing it in the same direction as the fur. And right here, it's going to add darker shadow on the inside, almost like filling in the center of each shape. Okay, so we have a highlight along the outside, just like this. So really pushing the form, the shapes of each area with these shadows. Now along the side edge of the face, we can add some stripes, these little wrinkles and spots, by just adding some darker tones inside. So just going to blend this out. Let's enhance that form, that shape of that patch right here, going up towards the ear. And we're just going to blend that out. And right here, it's going to brush some of that fur texture going around. We're going to matte some of this fur going across the cheeks. Blend that in towards the ear. Up. Let's darken up that fur. In behind the ear. Just like this. Now right in this space here, we can add some more folds. So just light shaded lines going up. Now across the back of the head, we're going to add that core shadow. Again, a little bit of highlight. So we're just darkening up the inside edge, and we're just going to fade that down. So just blending that out, and we want to take our time with this. You see that I blended that out, so it fades out. There's no hard edges in the shading. I'm going to do the same thing with the front of the arm. So again, leaving a little bit of a highlight. I'm just going to add that core shadow, darken up the edge. And it's okay that it's rough. It'll just add to the texture of the fur. And then as we come down towards the elbow, we're just going to darken that out. We're just going to blend that out. Now we're just brushing that texture of the arm fur going up and then out. Just blending that out. Now we're just going to work on the cub's head. Again, just modifying some of the shapes, adding a bit of detail inside that fur. Also add a little bit of soft fur texture along the inside of those white areas. Those large white areas, we can break that up by adding a bit of a shadow. Let's darken up that stripe down the center of the forehead. Bring that down. And then from the top of the nose, we're going to leave a small gap. And just brush that fur going up the middle. Like that. Let's add a little bit of a stripe right here and some spots. I'm really going to push that shadow along the top of the head, underneath that fold. Okay. Now let's add that little fold underneath the eyes. Again, just leaving a little gap. And then shading that out. And we're going to darken up the bottom. Now with the muzzle, let's darken up that center line. Fade that out towards the sides. Also softening up that fur across the mouth. Now I'm going to really push the darkness underneath the chin. So let's switch back to our 2B pencil. So darken up that shadow. And right where the body meets that arm, we're really going to enhance that shadow. Let's darken up this area right here. Bring this all the way down towards the bottom. Now across the arm, I'm just going to add some small details, these little stripes. And by bending these stripes, we enhance the shape of that arm. Now to protect my drawing from smudging underneath my hand, I'm going to use a separate piece of paper underneath. Now I'm going to switch back to the tip of my HB pencil. We're going to add some fine texture on top. So that fur, we're just going to brush this inside the shadows. And in some areas, we can also enhance it by crossing in to the highlights. So from the, I'm just going to brush the fur coming down very lightly. It's a very subtle effect. You can also use this to enhance some of the contrast. So right here, I'm just going to darken up the top of the eye. I'm just going to brush that fur across the top of the brow. Now along this area where the tone separates, I'm just going to brush that fur coming in. Like that. Brush this down. And we can also cross into those white areas, just so we get that continuation of textures. We can also enhance some of those spots along the side. And do the same thing across the chin. Also adding a few spots on the bottom. And we're just going to tighten up all our details. Just going back over. Now this detail on the outside of the body, we're going to be very rough with this. We want to pull the focus back towards this area here. So we don't need to add too much detail, as long as it feels fluid and smooth. That there's no abrupt stoppage in the shading or tones. And again, just adding that fur texture inside those shadow areas. And then also just crossing into the highlights very subtly. I'm just going to go back and just darken up some of our contrast, and this will help balance out our drawing. So it's not feeling too heavy in specific areas. We just want to make sure that it doesn't feel too heavy in one area. I get an even balance of weight. Now, as we get near the end, I'm just going to tighten up my shadows and contrast, and always be sure to sign my artwork. And that's pretty much it. There's a sketch illustration of a lion and her cub. I hope you enjoyed today's special Mother's Day lesson. And if you enjoy sketch illustration, then come visit our sketch club on School. And right now, you can get a free 7-day trial to access all our courses and workshops and early access to videos just like this. I'll leave the link down in the description below. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next lesson.